My life has been one of immense honor and influence. Everyone respected me, not just because I was the Empress, but because my last name was Shin. The entire Great Liang dynasty was built on the blood and sacrifice of the Shin family. I naturally deserved their reverence. Only one person hated me. Granny pointed her finger at my nose and called me heartless. She said, "Shin-chi, your Shin family is about to die out. Do you know that?" Folks, the full story is complete, so please enjoy. Melancholy little French fry reminds you, the main story begins now. I probably won't live past my 33rd year. The cause of death is quite simple. A month ago, late at night, I was craving coolness, and while the servants weren't paying attention, I snuck into the pavilion and drank a jar of wine. Drunk, I fell asleep right there in the pavilion. The next day, I caught a severe cold. My health had always been excellent. I hadn't been sick since childhood. I never expected this cold to be so fierce. I've been in bed for a month, and my condition has only worsened. The imperial physicians are helpless, their brows constantly furrowed. I think I'm probably not going to make it. 33 years old. This life of mine, neither long nor short, really has nothing left to cling to. After I fell ill, Duke Li Han would stay by my bedside whenever he was free. He is the ruler of the nation, and he's been busy handling state affairs while also accompanying me, visibly growing thinner each day. I forced myself to smile and tease him. "I'm fine. You should rest too. Don't let me recover only for you to collapse." He gently fed me medicine, speaking as if we were just chatting about daily life. "It's fine. Songji is already 16. With his help in the imperial court, I can worry a bit less." I said nothing more. Songji is the eldest son of Duke Li Han and me. I married Duke Li Han at 16, under the decree of the late emperor. At 17, I gave birth to our eldest prince. Afterward, I bore him a daughter and another son. The emperor and empress lived in harmony, treating each other with respect, a well-known tale among the common people. Indeed, I never suffered much in this life. I was the empress. In the late emperor's harem, there were endless disgusting incidents of witchcraft among concubines, and the poisoning of imperial heirs. But when it came to my reign, I didn't encounter a single one of those things. Duke Li Han was a typical emperor. Although not obsessed with women, his harem was quite full. 3 ladies, 9 concubines, 5 seats, 1 primary consort, not a single position was missing. Of course, jealousy and bickering often occurred in the harem, but no matter who saw me, they would respectfully bow and greet me with "Long live the Empress." This, of course, was not because I managed the harem in an orderly fashion or was benevolent and loving. It was simply because my last name was Shin. My name is Shin. In the 23rd year of Emperor Cao Shi's reign, my father, General Shin Yan, died on the battlefield in the northern frontier. In that battle, because the late emperor mistakenly trusted a treacherous minister, the northern army was completely annihilated. My father's remains were never found. Finally, my mother, with my eldest brother and second brother, led the orphans and widows of the soldiers to the northern frontier. There, they buried the bones of all the fallen souls. Afterward, my mother committed suicide, unable to leave my father's memorial tomb. In the second year of Emperor Jingdao, my eldest brother led the newly formed Northern Army, which was less than 3 years old, to defend Jade Gate Pass for 45 days, fighting 1 against 100. He died a martyr. Afterward, the Jurchen tribe entered the Central Plains, stationing themselves north of the Yellow River and posing a threat. It was my 4th sister, Shenxi, who was offered as a sacrifice to the Jurchen leader, in exchange for 5 years of peace. Days before she was offered to the Jurchens, she had looked down shyly at me and smiled, saying, "Little Chi, I have someone I like. Tomorrow, I'll bring him to meet you." But I never met the person she liked, and she died in the 3rd year after being offered. In the 2nd year of the Xian dynasty, my second brother Shenmu and third brother Shenjun, 1 civil and 1 military, endured for 5 years, driving the Jurchens back to their homeland. My second brother was then poisoned to death. My third brother fell ill from his time on the battlefield. He passed away in the winter of the year my second brother died. In the 5th year of the Xian dynasty, my 5th sister Shenlin was sent north for a political marriage. She has not returned since. I sent letters north for 3 years. For the first year, there were replies, but then they stopped. In the 3rd year, I stopped sending letters north. This way, I could tell myself that my 5th sister was alive and well in the north. She was just too busy to write to her little Chi. Last year, My sixth brother Sibling resigned from his post and returned to his hometown. He said he wanted to go north to find our fifth sister and see her with his own eyes before he could rest easy. Before he left, he told me that the journey was long and difficult, and communication would be hard, so I didn't need to look for him. But he said he would send me a specially minted copper coin each year through a money exchange he encountered on the road, to signify that he was safe. I received last year's coin, but not this year's yet. But it doesn't matter, this year is still long. It's good that he left. Now, only I am left, enduring in this vast capital. This entire great Liang dynasty was built on the blood and sacrifice of my Shen family. Although only I remain now, the name Shen is the faith of the entire great Liang. No matter how respectful they are to me, I deserve it. Of course, I've also been cursed at. The year my second brother died, Granny came to the palace and pointed at my nose, cursing, "Shen Qi, your Shen family is about to die out. Do you know that? You sit on this Empress's throne. Everyone respects you. Everyone reveres you. Do you think you're so important? Do you think you're so magnificent? Do you know you're stepping on the blood of your father and brothers? All the honor you have standing here is bought with the blood and lives of your father and brothers." Later, Duke Li Han arrived with his guards, his face dark. As Granny was dragged away, her face was covered in tears, her eyes filled with despair. Struggling against the guards' restraints, she glared at me fiercely, her gaze filled with hatred yet also endless sorrow. Even when she was far away, I could still hear her cries, each one piercing my heart. Later, when silence fell and only Duke Li Han and I remained, I raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face. You see, afterward, Duke Li Han and I lived in harmony, treating each other with respect, as if those days of sharp conflict had never existed. When I slapped him that day, he didn't move or get angry, he just stood there and took the slap. The blood that had been stuck in my throat gushed out, staining his imperial robes. Then I heard his words, as if filled with helplessness. He said to me, "Little Qi, I am the ruler of a nation. My decisions were made out of necessity. This slap, I accepted as your husband. I can forgive you, but don't mistake tolerance for indulgence." Forgiveness? I remember then, I laughed hysterically, full of self-mockery. I lunged at him, like a madwoman, grabbing his hand and slapping my own face. I cried out, "If a slap can bring my second brother back to life, then hit me, hit me. You think you're so important? Li Han, is my second brother's life only worth you taking this one slap?" By the end, I had fainted. I was actually raised by my second brother. I was the youngest child in the Shen family. When I was born, my eldest brother was already training with father in the military camp, and my mother was certainly with them. My third brother was always wandering the streets, chasing after women, and didn't want to take care of me. My fourth sister was gentle, but spent all her time embroidering and was often ill, her courtyard filled with the smell of bitter medicine. I would cry every time I entered her small courtyard. My fifth sister and sixth brother were twins, and not much older, always getting into trouble together and harassing the neighborhood children. They were a nuisance. Only my second brother was willing to take me, although he often hung me on tree branches to dry after washing my hair when I was little, and liked to put medicine pills inside candied hawthorn shells to trick me into eating them, and even forced me to recite a poem every day in front of him, threatening to hit my palm if I couldn't. But I still loved him, truly loved him. But my second brother, my brilliant, resourceful, and elegant second brother, who could defeat 1,000 enemies with a smile, didn't die on the battlefield. He died from a cup of poisoned wine. A month after his 7th day of mourning, I stood beside Duke Li Han, receiving the adoration of all officials and the bowing of all commoners. I had to smile and stand beside him, to show the harmony of the royal family. I had to place my hand in his, gazing at him gently, silently telling myself, and telling the world, "This is my husband." Every day, I forced myself to forget that the bowl of wine fed to my second brother was not bestowed by Duke Li Han, nor was it handed to him by my own hands. I forced myself for so many years that it felt as if I had truly forgotten. Songji came to see me. I was feeling a bit drowsy from my illness. He sat by my bedside and read me the latest play script from the theater. In recent years, with stability in the Great Liang dynasty and people having their fill, the new play scripts were all about romance between men and women. I didn't really like listening to them, but I loved seeing Songji sitting by me, reading. They say nephews resemble their maternal uncles. His eyes and brows greatly resembled my third brother. When my father was alive, He always said my third brother was the most useless one in our family. My third brother was handsome, with a charming demeanor, and a carefree, wild nature. He was a true playboy, riding his horse through the city, attracting countless admirers. Our Shin family had strict traditions, and my father often called my third brother golden on the outside, rotten on the inside. My third brother didn't care. His catchphrase was, with eldest brother for martial arts and second brother for literature. Our Shin family is already accomplished in both. Aren't we just missing a charming playboy? Then he would be confined by father. Each time, fourth sister would secretly bring him food. I was small then, and I only remember that every time third brother returned from the pleasure quarters, he would buy me a candied hawthorn. I was losing my baby teeth then, and every time second brother caught me eating candied hawthorn, third brother would get a scolding. Sometimes, I was mischievous and deliberately placed the eaten hawthorn stick where second brother could easily find it. Third brother would get angry and pinch my cheek, calling me an ungrateful wretch, but no matter what, he never forgot to bring me the best candied hawthorn from the West Street. Later, after our parents passed away and eldest brother died defending Jade Gate Pass, when the great Leon was being oppressed by the Jurchens and utterly defenseless, my unrestrained, pleasure-loving third brother put on armor and rushed to the front lines of the battlefield. By the time the Jurchens were driven back north, my third brother had a limp, and 3 vital parts of his body had sword wounds. The face that had captivated countless young women in the capital was scarred, with a mark running diagonally down from his temple, across his entire left cheek, and ending at his lips. When he smiled, it was hideous. That's why my third brother later earned the title King Azura. The Shin family's political enemies even called him Shin the Lame behind his back. I wonder if anyone still remembers that he was once the most handsome young man in the capital. If father were alive to see third brother later, I wonder if he would be relieved or heartbroken, perhaps even wishing his third son had remained the useless person he once was. I tentatively reached out my hand to Songji. His voice paused, then he quickly put down the play script, leaned down in front of me, pressed my hand against his face, and called me Mother. I liked him calling me Mother. It was more intimate than Empress. Outside, he rarely showed such a dependent, childlike affection for his mother. He was mature for his age, with a steady temperament, like my eldest brother. I gently caressed his brow, lost in thought. The 16-year-old boy's eyebrows were full of youthful vigor, as if an old friend had returned. My consciousness gradually blurred. A tear slid down the corner of my eye. I closed my eyes and painfully called out, Third brother, candied hawthorn, go buy me candied hawthorn. Third brother, little Chi wants the best candied hawthorn from West Street. Why don't you buy it for me anymore? Are you angry? I cried until I was drowsy. In my stupor, I heard someone instruct those nearby to have the Imperial Kitchen prepare candied hawthorn and send it over. I woke up in the middle of the night. Songji was still leaning by my bed, guarding me. The moment I stirred, he woke up. His eyes were bloodshot, whether from exhaustion or crying, I didn't know. He picked up a candied hawthorn from nearby, forced a smile, and asked me, Mother, would you like some candied hawthorn? I took it and placed it aside, gazing at him gently. The water clock in the room dripped. I felt much better. My spirits revived. I patted his hand and asked, Songji, what month is it today? It's the 3rd day of the 3rd month. Mother, the peach blossoms outside the window have all fallen. When you recover, the first batch of peaches will be ripe. The 3rd day of the 3rd month. I repeated the date to myself a few times. Then I instructed Songji, Mother can't move this year. On the 6th day of the 4th month, go to the 10,000 Buddha's temple and burn incense for an old friend of Mother's. Then, go to the manor in the city's outskirts and sweep a tomb for me. Songji asked who this old friend was. Who is this old friend? I closed my eyes and told him, he is your benefactor. Without him, you wouldn't be alive today. At first, Miss Hu and I disliked each other, because initially, she was the designated crown princess, Duke Li Han's legal wife. But after the late emperor decreed that I become Duke Li Han's legal wife, Miss Hu became a secondary consort in the Eastern Palace. She was 5 years older than me, yet she was always a step behind me, having to call me older sister. When I first married Duke Li Han, she was quite disrespectful to me. She would either not come to pay her respects, or she would constantly try to snatch things from me. Anything I liked, she would have to get before me. I thought she was quite childish back then, and I couldn't be bothered to argue with her. Later, The late emperor, swayed by treacherous rumors, suspected my father of rebellion in the northern frontier. She somehow heard the news and, late one night, woke me up with a bundle, urgently saying, "Shen-Chi, wake up. The emperor suspects General Shen of rebellion. Someone from the palace is coming to arrest you. To make an example and deter the northern frontier, you must run." I didn't believe her then. I said, "How can that be? You're lying to me. If His Majesty truly suspects my father, wouldn't my escape just confirm my Shen family's guilt? Where's the crown prince? I need to see him." She slapped me across the face in frustration and said, "Are you stupid? Treacherous ministers dominate the court. If the crown prince speaks for your Shen family now, wouldn't His Majesty suspect him of colluding with the Shen family? Besides, he's already confined in the palace. Hurry, go." In my memory, I was practically pushed and pulled out by her. I still remember the last time I saw her. The moonlight was like frost, falling cold and desolate. I was filled with panic and doubt. When she handed me the bundle, she paused, then said, If you see your eldest brother return, tell me how he's doing now." And just like an older sister, she reached out and touched the top of my head, smiling very gently. She said to me, "I'll cover for you for a while, little Chi, don't be afraid." I was newly pregnant then. I thought that no matter how much the imperial court suspected the Shen family, they wouldn't lay hands on me before the situation was confirmed. I even suspected that Miss Hu was deliberately trying to harm my Shen family. Unfortunately, I was wrong. Half a month later, the complete annihilation of the Northern Army proved my Shen family's innocence. When I was brought back to the Eastern Palace, Miss Hu had already died. That night, after I left, she pretended to be me when the palace guards came to arrest someone. The imperial guards didn't recognize her. Later, the imperial eunuch falsely relayed a message, making the late emperor believe that my father had declared himself king in the northern frontier. So, he issued an edict to execute me. No one knew the late emperor would actually kill, especially since I was pregnant then. Miss Hu was stabbed through the heart from behind during the chaotic pushing and shoving, while trying to explain to others that she wasn't the crown princess. When I returned to the Eastern Palace, her coffin had not yet been buried. I knelt before her coffin, weeping uncontrollably. I told her that I had seen my eldest brother, and he was doing well. I asked him if he remembered the crown prince's secondary consort who, and he said he did. He also said he remembered saving me when I had fallen into the water, and that my eyes were very beautiful. I chattered on and on. Finally, Duke Li Han rushed back from the palace. He saw me and hurried over, saying, "Little Chi, do you want to worry me to death? You've been completely out of touch for so long. Do you know what I've been through all this time?" I knelt on the ground, holding Miss Hu's coffin, tears streaming down my face as I looked up at him. I asked him, "What have you been through? What have you done? What have you done for me? For Miss Hu? For the Shen family? You are my husband, and Miss Hu's. You clearly knew our Shen family couldn't rebel. So what did you do for us? You are also the crown prince of Great Liang. The emperor is foolish, treacherous ministers are in power, and the people are suffering. You knew all of this, but what did you do for the common people?" He did nothing. This is his greatest sin. I will never forgive him. After Duke Li Han finished reviewing the memorials, Song Ji withdrew. I had been drowsy all day from lying down too long, so I was full of energy at night. Duke Li Han held my hand and reminisced about the past. He wasn't a sentimental person, nor was I someone who enjoyed dwelling on the past. Perhaps it was because we were both getting old. Nearly 20 years had passed, and he was also middle-aged, with streaks of white in his temples, probably because he rarely smiled. His eyes still held authority, a kind of awe-inspiring dignity. He held my hand, a faint smile appearing at the corners of his eyes. He asked me, "Do you still remember when you first married me?" Of course, I remember. He was the same age as my sixth brother. At that time, my sixth brother was his study companion. He loved coming to the Shen residence with my sixth brother because our house had a lot of toys and fewer rules. I was the youngest, and every time he came, he would tap my forehead with his folding fan and coax me with a smile, call me Big Brother. When I was little, I would sweetly call him Big Brother, but I stopped when I got older. We used to play without any sense of formality, just treating him as a neighbor's big brother. One time, my fifth sister and I tricked him into climbing a tree to get our kite. After he climbed up, my fifth sister and I secretly moved the ladder away from the tree. We were overjoyed watching him stuck on the treetop. He wasn't angry. He called to my sixth brother, who was standing nearby watching the fun. "Zijuan, are you just going to watch your little sisters bully me like this?" My fifth sister was very angry, stomping her foot below the tree and repeatedly emphasizing, "I'm the elder sister. I was born half an hour before this boy. Who's the little sister?" My sixth brother also laughed, spreading his hands as if helpless. "Crown Prince, you see, I wouldn't dare provoke these two tigresses." So the dignified Crown Prince had no choice. Not wanting to show weakness, he tucked the kite under his arm and skillfully climbed down the tree trunk. We were roaring with laughter. After he came down, he handed the kite to my fifth sister and me, giving each of us a light flick on the head. Then he chuckled and said, "I, the dignified Crown Prince, doing such a thing, you two must not tell anyone, or else." He was so gentle and easygoing back then, he couldn't even find a way to threaten us. And then came the urgent imperial decree. The late emperor suddenly wanted to choose a daughter from the Shin family to marry Duke Li Han. Logically, I was the youngest, but somehow the choice fell on me. That night, under a sky full of glittering stars, Duke Li Han secretly came to my courtyard. He gently placed a hairpin in my hair, his eyes tender in the moonlight, and asked me, "Little Chi, are you willing to marry me?" I blushed, lowered my head, and softly hummed an affirmation. Now, as I lie in bed, Duke Li Han reaches out and brushes away the stray hairs from my face. His hand lingers on my cheek, perhaps searching for traces of our youth. His smile carries a gentle wistfulness as he says to me, "So many years have passed, and you still seem to be just as you were when you married me, yet I have grown so old. All these years I've been married to Duke Li Han. I've felt joy, love, anger, wistfulness, and hatred. All my joys and sorrows, my every emotion, are tied to this person." Duke Li Han and I had our first Cold War during the time Miss Who died. The Shin family underwent immense changes. My father died, and my mother also died. Everyone seemed to mature in an instant. Songji grew bigger in my womb day by day. My mind was troubled, and I continued to have a Cold War with Duke Li Han until I gave birth. I had a difficult labor then. He sat by my bedside in the delivery room, holding my hand, weeping uncontrollably, and pouring out a flood of his feelings. When I woke up, I gazed at a pear blossom branch extending into the window and sighed softly to myself, "Forget it, forget it. You can't understand another suffering unless you're in their shoes." In this chaotic and absurd world full of treacherous individuals, he also had his own hardships. That's how we reconciled. Later, in the second year of Xingde, after my father's death, there were no competent generals, and the northern defense line collapsed. My eldest brother led the Northern Army, which had been in training for less than 3 years, to defend Jade Gate Pass. At that time, the late emperor was already confined to his sickbed, and corrupt eunuchs and treacherous ministers held power in the court. Duke Li Han, as the crown prince, couldn't even see the emperor's face. Reinforcements were delayed. Duke Li Han knelt in front of the Hall of Rectitude for 2 days. On the third day, a torrential downpour, accompanied by thunder, began. I carried Songji into the palace to hold an umbrella for him. The rain lashed down from all directions, quickly drenching us from head to toe. It was just like this chaotic and ridiculous world, unavoidable. My eldest brother was defending Jade Gate Pass alone. Supplies were critically low, and the soldiers' morale was flagging. The Jurchens were like hungry wolves, tearing at that small pass. My eldest brother was about to collapse. I thought of the desperate letters sent from the border, stained with blood. I couldn't help but sob. Through my tear-blurred eyes, Duke Li Han, who had been kneeling, suddenly stood up. He straightened his back as the rain poured down. Through the rain, his gaze was mournful yet resolute as he looked at me and asked, "Are you willing to do something crazy with me?" Of course, I was willing. Amidst the rumbling thunder, he threw his head back and laughed aloud, his voice desolate and despairing, filled with hatred as he cried out to the heavens, "Oh, heaven, open your eyes." He took my hand and walked determinedly out of the palace without looking back, until we reached the 5th camp of the Imperial Guard. I stood beside him, holding Songji. He struck the war drum of the 5th camp. Boom, 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 boom. When the people of the 5th camp heard the sound and gathered, he threw the drumstick aside and stood on the high watchtower. Looking down, he asked clearly, word by word, "Soldiers, I am Li Han, the Crown Prince of Great Liang. I ask you, are you willing to go with me to the northern frontier to defend our homeland?" Below, there was silence. He continued, "The emperor is weak, treacherous ministers hold power, and the Jurchens are invading our borders. General Shin, my father-in-law, was falsely accused and died on the battlefield. Now, Shinan leads the Northern Army, with less than 10,000 men, defending Jade Gate Pass against 100,000 Jurchen troops. I ask you, are you willing to go with me to the northern frontier to defend our homeland? The Son of Heaven is incompetent and does not guard the nation's gates. The monarch is immoral and does not protect the country. I cast aside my identity as the Crown Prince of Great Liang and ask you, citizens of Great Liang, are you willing to go with me to the northern frontier to defend our homeland? I have no military power, no military tally. I cannot promise you titles of nobility, but I can guarantee that as long as I do not fall, the northern frontier will not fall. Great Liang will not lose an inch of its territory. A long silence followed. A leader came forward to drag us away. A sharp sword pierced the air, striking the leader's throat. Through my tear-blurred eyes, amidst the torrential rain, I heard that earth-shattering cry, the northern frontier will not fall. Great Liang will not lose an inch of its territory. The northern frontier will not fall. Great Liang will not lose an inch of its territory. That mutiny only took 2 days. Duke Li Han, with the soldiers who followed him, staged a palace coup. From then on, the Great Liang dynasty had no military tally. Duke Li Han's face was the military tally. He executed the eunuchs, removed the treacherous ministers, and restored order to the government. Finally, he led the reinforcements north, directly to Jade Gate Pass. Unfortunately, it was too late. Everything was too late. My eldest brother, with 10,000 soldiers and no supplies, had defended against 100,000 strong and well-equipped Jurchens for 45 days. That was his limit. When Duke Li Han led his men across the Qinling Mountains, Jade Gate Pass fell. My eldest brother died a martyr. The Jurchens invaded deeper into our territory and clashed with Duke Li Han's advancing reinforcements. After several months of stalemate across the Yellow River, they reluctantly negotiated peace. My fourth sister was offered as a war trophy to the Jurchen leader. This was because the enemy had our Shin family's portrait, saying that the Shin family members were all tough nuts to crack. From my father to my eldest brother, he wanted to see if the Shin family women's bodies were just as tough to chew. He was curious whether the Shin family women's bodies were hard or soft. When the news came back, my fourth sister remained silent. My fifth sister clenched her fists, fiercely declaring that she would go. She would show those barbarians just how tough the Shin family women's bones were. Later, my fourth sister, who only knew how to recite poetry and embroider, and was always frail, drugged me the night before she was to go north. My fifth sister took her place on that northbound sedan chair. This was the final outcome of that tumultuous and passionate palace coup. Of course, this cannot be blamed on Duke Li Han. In that historical context, what he managed to achieve later was already quite remarkable. I never blamed him for this. What I resented was another matter. Recalling this much, I couldn't think any further. Because of the overwhelming anger, a mouthful of blood gushed out. Duke Li Han's face turned pale. He was about to call for the imperial physicians. I grabbed his hand and said, "It's nothing. I don't want to see anyone right now." After a pause, I said, "I want to see Granny. Will you let her come to the palace tomorrow and talk with me?" Duke Li Han's expression was very displeased. He didn't have a good impression of Granny, probably because she had always been so blunt with me. For so many years, among all these people, only she would always look at me with a cold face. Actually, we used to be very good playmates. Sometimes, we would play late into the night and often even sleep together. She and I were even closer than my fifth sister and I were. She once even shyly told me, "Little Chi, would you be willing to let me be your second sister-in-law?" I laughed then. I said, "Oh my goodness, are you blind? My second brother is such a prude, and he's much older than you. You really shouldn't like him." A blush spread from her face to her earlobes. She twisted and turned, saying, "But I just like him." Later, which of us ever had what we wanted? Granny came to the palace the next afternoon, as that was when my spirits were best. I don't know if Duke Li Han had given instructions, but although her expression was still displeased, it was at least somewhat calmer. She had aged a lot too, and her hair had turned quite white, but then again, she was also in her 30s and a mother of 2. I smiled and looked at her, calling out, "Granny, you've also grown old." She snorted, rolled her eyes at me, and sarcastically said, "I wouldn't dare compare myself to you. Empress, you are pampered with perfume and pearls every day. Don't worry, you're still young." I laughed. You're right. Yesterday, Duke Lihan even said I looked just like I did when I first married him. She choked on her words, then laughed. You and His Majesty are truly loving, enviable indeed. She paused, her tone growing bleak. Do you still remember them? Do you remember your parents? Your eldest brother, second brother, third brother, fourth sister, fifth sister? You are high above, sitting on this throne, enjoying so many years of glory and wealth. Shen-Chi, does your conscience not ache? How could I not remember them? I was the youngest daughter of the Shen family, but in all these years, in my short life, everyone around me has left. My parents are gone. My eldest brother died in battle. My second brother died young. My third brother died early. My fourth sister died tragically in a foreign land, her bones unrest. My fifth sister went to a political marriage and is unheard from, and my sixth brother wanders the Jianghu, his whereabouts unknown. Only I sit on the throne of the Empress, enjoying 17 years of honor. Every night, I toss and turn, crying bitterly. I have endured on this throne for 17 years because of something my second brother said to me. That was a very, very long time ago. My second brother and third brother inherited the Shen family's legacy, fighting on the battlefield. At that time, the late emperor had already passed away. Duke Lihan had ascended the throne, and internal affairs were stable. The Great Liang united its entire nation to resist foreign invasion. Fifth prince, at 13, was already known as Little Zhuge. He was in charge of strategy, and third brother was in charge of martial arts. Fifth sister and sixth brother were also in the military camp, with them garrisoned in the north. Good news kept pouring in. My third brother was severely wounded and almost didn't make it that year. I shed my Empress's phoenix robes, rushed to the front lines, donned armor, and held a long spear. Weeping uncontrollably, I said to my second brother, I want to be with you all. Second brother didn't laugh at me, he raised me himself. All of us in the Shen family, except fourth sister who was frail, were skilled in martial arts. Second brother looked at me with compassion. Stroking my hair, he said, Little Chi, second brother knows you are suffering. All my defenses crumbled at that moment. Who knew? I never wanted to sit on that throne. I am a Shen family member, the soul of the Shen family. I didn't want to live in a grand palace every day, eating exotic delicacies. I didn't want to spend every day nervously waiting for news from the front lines in the lonely harem. How I wished I could be by their side, fighting alongside them, sharing their hardships. We are the closest people in this world. My second brother didn't scold me, nor did he lecture me. He only said to me, Little Chi, do you know why? When the late emperor arranged the marriage, father and I chose you to marry into the royal family. Your fourth sister is physically weak, and her heart is too clever, which is not suitable for royalty. Your fifth sister is too careless, also not suitable. Only you, whom I raised myself, second brother knows your spirit is the most resilient. Knowing where the line is drawn doesn't mean you have to be by our side to share hardships. Little Chi, the royal family is not an easy place to be, and the emperor's thoughts are not easy to guess. If you are stable in the harem, the foundation of the Shen family can be stable. Later, after my third brother recovered from his injuries, I returned. I never understood my second brother's words. I thought he was simply being prepared. In my heart, Duke Lihan would never become like the late emperor. I didn't know then that the human heart is the most fickle thing. This war lasted 5 years. After the Jurchens were driven back, only my Shen family remained. The little eunuch at the imperial court, Little Detzi, secretly sent me a message saying that Duke Lihan could no longer tolerate my second brother. I still didn't believe it then. At that time, I was having a difficult labor with Songji, which probably left a deep impression on Duke Lihan. He probably feared any sudden changes that might affect my heart and the pregnancy, so he didn't hide it from me before acting. He just sat in the center of the Hall of Rectitude, during lunch, and told me in a very light tone, Little Chi, I can no longer tolerate Shenmue. I didn't ask him why, because I knew that in the final battle between Great Liang and the Jurchens, my second brother, in a moment of impulse, let the Jurchen third prince, Wan Yanzhen, go. To put it mildly, this could be considered treason. In these years of stable Great Liang governance, the Shen family's political enemies had often used this incident to impeach my second brother. Little Detzi secretly sent me a message. That night, I secretly went to the Shen residence to find my second brother and urged him to think of a way out. He was then drinking on the eaves of the roof. When he heard my words, he smiled. He looked at the full moon in the sky and softly recited, "The bright moon rises from the Tian Shan mountains, amidst the vast sea of clouds. What time is it? And you're still reciting poetry?" I was frantic and interrupted him, but he raised his index finger to his lips, shushed me softly, and then smiled, pointing at the full moon hanging from the eaves. "Little Chi, look, the moonlight tonight is truly beautiful." He closed his eyes. A gust of wind blew. He said, "Listen to the wind tonight." I didn't understand. Later, he smiled and said to me, "It's fine, go back to the palace. I know what I'm doing." I believed him. Then Duke Li Han gave me two options. One was a memorial requesting retirement, and the other was a cup of instantly fatal poison. He told my second brother to choose. As a gesture of respect to the Shen family, I personally carried these two things. I didn't give him the poison. I laid the memorial on my second brother's desk. I cried and begged him, but he remained unmoved. I cried for a long time. Finally, he looked at me gently and said, "Little Chi, pour second brother a cup of tea." I refused. Later, someone else poured it for him. He didn't drink it, just kept looking at me. Finally, with trembling hands, I poured him that cup of tea. He looked at me with satisfaction and said, "Little Chi, you've grown up." From the moment Duke Li Han gave me those two choices, I knew he didn't intend for my second brother to live. And my second brother, he also didn't consider a second path. He had to die for the Shen family to be completely safe, to be without blemish. Everyone understood this perfectly well, yet they still had to go through the motions of a dignified charade. I knew all along that my personal presence was merely to personally send him off. I thought that my pure and noble second brother shouldn't die at someone else's hands. If he truly had to choose, he would be very content for his most beloved little Chi to personally send him off. After second brother drank that cup of poisoned wine, he began to suffer. Blood slowly dripped from the corners of his lips. I held him in my arms and asked him, "Why, second brother, why did you let Wan Yanjun go? He's a jerchin." He didn't answer me. His eyes gradually lost focus. He kept muttering the lines from Moon Over the Mountain Pass. Finally, he touched my hair and said his last words. He said, "Little Chi, be good." In that instant, I lost my voice. Great sorrow knows no tears. Great enlightenment knows no sound. I wanted to cry out to the sky, to scream loudly, but the pain was so extreme that I couldn't make a sound. Something was stuck in my throat, choking me. Not a single tear fell. Finally, Granny, who had rushed over after hearing the news, pushed open the door and cried out, "Second brother, for me." Later, I repeatedly read that poem, Moon Over the Mountain Pass. The bright moon rises from the Tian Shan mountains, amidst the vast sea of clouds. The long wind travels for tens of thousands of miles, blowing past the Jade Gate Pass. The Han descended the White Steppe Road. The Hu spies the Qinghai Gulf, where battles have always been fought. No one is ever seen returning. The garrison soldier gazes at the border town, full of bitterness, longing to return. In the tall tower, on this very night, he sighs with endless melancholy. I recited it over and over, and finally, I could only wonder who, on the other side of Jade Gate Pass, moved by the long wind, made my second brother sigh with endless melancholy every night. My second brother's death silenced the critics in the imperial court. Everyone said I was profound and righteous, personally dealing with my brother. The Shen family was still the loyal and patriotic Shen family. Their lives were better, and they forgot who had poured their heart and soul into building this stable and prosperous era. Second brother died for my third brother, for my fifth and sixth sisters, and for the Shen family's century-old reputation and foundation. I personally acted for the Shen family's foundation. The Shen family's foundation. But who would have thought all our sacrifices would be in vain? My third brother couldn't hold on. 5 years of war had left him battered and scarred, with internal injuries that wouldn't heal. He had been forcing himself to act as if nothing was wrong. After second brother died, he couldn't hold on any longer. He collapsed and died that same winter. When third brother died, I had just given birth to Yu and was confined to bed. When Duke Li Han came to see me, my aphonia suddenly healed, and I spoke my first words since my second brother's death. I asked him, "Duke Li Han, are you happy now?" He stood by my bedside, and tears fell from his eyes, one by one. He also had so many emotions he wanted to vent. Finally, he suppressed the painful agony in his voice and said to me, "Little Chi, I am also suffering." I knew he was suffering. This nation, ravaged and in need of rebuilding, was like a heavy burden. all on his shoulders. He also had to balance the power of the great aristocratic families in internal politics, in the imperial court and behind the scenes. One wrong step would lead to repeated mistakes and eternal damnation. But if he suffered, who among us didn't suffer? Granny asked if my conscience ached. How could it not ache? Every day, I wished it was me who had died, not any of them. That way, I wouldn't cry bitterly every night, tossing and turning, suffering to the extreme, unable to sleep. Second brother told me to be good. How could he not know that only the one left behind is the most tormented? They were truly too cruel to me. My spirits were low. Granny didn't stay long. She sat for a while and then left. I thought this would be our last meeting. I just wanted to find an old friend to reminisce with before I died. That night, I began to cough up blood incessantly. The entire hall of plain elegance was brightly lit. All the imperial physicians stood in attendance. Helpless, Duke Li Han was losing his temper with them. In my moments of lucidity, I tightly gripped Songji's hand, staring fixedly at him. Every time I spoke, blood continuously flowed from my mouth. I stubbornly and with difficulty uttered, "Your fifth aunt." He understood those 3 words. With reddened eyes, he placed his hand on the back of mine and solemnly promised, word by word, "Mother, don't worry. As long as fifth aunt lives, I will bring her back completely unharmed. If fifth aunt is no longer with us, I will collect every single bone of her remains, even if I have to search every inch of the northern barbarian lands, and bring them back to Great Liang." I finally closed my eyes in peace. My fifth sister is the eternal pain of my life. After Great Liang repelled the Jurchens, 3 years later, the northern barbarians united and returned. Great Liang was then in a state of national exhaustion, recuperating, and truly could not afford to wage another war with its remaining strength. Many common people also suffered. They wanted my fifth sister to go for a political marriage. Those barbarians seemed to have singled out the Shin family members. My fifth sister's spear-wielding skills were superb. Before the political marriage, those people, worried about my fifth sister's martial arts, demanded that her meridians be destroyed. A direct confrontation would only result in mutual destruction. I don't know if that group of barbarians used this as a pretext to target the Shin family, but we couldn't gamble, nor could we gamble with the lives of countless common people. Many of Great Liang's young men had already died in the war. We simply couldn't afford another war. So, my fifth sister agreed. My fifth sister, who was once renowned on the battlefield and upheld the Shin family's prestige, for 3 months before going for the political marriage, her courtyard, like my fourth sister's, was filled with the smell of bitter medicine. She used to gallop across battlefields, her expression unchanged after hundreds of miles, but later, she would turn pale and weak, needing assistance after walking just half a mile. Finally, when I went to see her off before she left, she asked me just before getting into the sedan chair, "Little Chi, if fourth sister knew I was still following in her footsteps, would she be very sad?" I wept uncontrollably. My life has been so useless. I couldn't protect anyone, couldn't guard anyone. It seemed all I knew how to do was cry. Later, I only felt fortunate that my second brother died early. When he died, he must have believed that he had paved such a long road for us with his life. His younger siblings, they would surely live healthy, smooth, and carefree lives until they were old. It's good that he left early. That way, he wouldn't be heartbroken. I closed my eyes, tears slowly streaming down my face. I couldn't hold on any longer, but I still desperately clung on, not knowing what I was waiting for. Finally, Duke Li Han came to my bedside. His tears dripped onto my hand, one by one, and he said, "Little Chi, don't worry about the children. If there's a next life, will you marry me again? We'll be a normal couple, farming and weaving, just living a simple life." I smiled inwardly. A next life. A next life is too far away. I don't want to think about it. If there truly is one, I only hope I can still be my parents' daughter. I have 4 older brothers and 2 older sisters. No matter what my identity, I would be happy. My consciousness gradually blurred. I still gritted my teeth, refusing to let go. Finally, I don't know who, but someone slipped a copper coin into my hand. I heard Duke Li Han's choked voice. He said, "Little Chi, Zijuan's copper coin, signifying his safety, has arrived. You can rest now. Don't force yourself any longer." I slowly clutched the copper coin in my hand. That last breath completely left me. I finally smiled. Sixth brother. Oh, sixth brother. Little Chi is sorry. This time, let me go first. I closed my eyes with a smile. I thought, I can finally rest in peace.